Hi everybody, Dr. Brian Hooten here at Hooten Family Healing Center in Dallas, Texas. Got a very important message for all of you guys watching, whether you're in the office watching this, if you're watching it on YouTube or some social media. I would encourage you to take ownership of what I'm going to tell you about cancer and share this. We're in the middle of this crisis, this cancer epidemic. The stats speak for themselves. Barely 2% of the people that get diagnosed with cancer live 5 years after diagnosis. We've also recently found out that it is not genetics. It's not the BRCA or breast cancer gene or anything that happened in your family history. It is actually up to what you are doing. So I'm going to go through a couple of stories here right off the bat. And these are two ladies that I know personally. The first one died. Her name was Deborah. And the second one was Miss Kay. And she's alive 5-6 years later after her diagnosis. Now, the first one, Deborah, I got called in to this house, a very sweet woman, sweet family, and she had gone through chemo and radiation and surgeries over the previous 6 months, and at one point they said, we got all the cancer, it's gone, you're in remission. Of course, a couple months later it was back with roaring vengeance. And if you've been through cancer or any type of episode like this, listen, my heart goes out to you. I walked into this house and all these family members there, and it was awful. The mood was sad, everybody was scared, and thankfully she's a Christian. However, as I walked in and I get to talking to her and the family and everything, she is all over her room were donuts and cakes and candy. There was a box that had at least 30 medication bottles in it, and it represented exactly the opposite of what you would think being healthy is. And she died a few weeks later. There's really nothing I could do. I told her what she could start doing, and she didn't want to give up her donuts and coffee, basically. So we parted ways. Real sweet. The second lady was Miss Kay. Now, Miss Kay came in to see us in her early 70s. I believe she was 71 when we first met, and she had late stage terminal. So stage 4 terminal cancer that had started in her breast, it had spread to her liver, her kidneys, her cervix. There's a couple other organs. I can never keep them straight. I mean, she had it all over her body. It was spread everywhere. And she had just found this cancer. She hadn't gone through any chemo, radiation, no surgeries. And she came in with her family. And her attitude was a little different than the first lady I was telling you about. She wanted to be healthy. She wanted to live. So instead of thinking, and this is a big point, instead of just focusing on the cancer, Miss Kay wanted to live. And she wanted to know what I would tell her, what I could show her, and what I could do for her to help her get healthy. And that's a fundamental difference. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit. So Miss Kay came in with 6 organs full of cancer, metastasized everywhere. She was going to be dead in a few weeks. She was on a walker. She was obese. And she came in with her family. I went back there and talked to her. And we started laying out this plan. If you want to do this and get healthy, this is what you've got to do. And there was no plan B. Okay, you get that? And she knew that. She knew that she just needed to find the right avenue and get committed. Most people are as committed as a kamikaze pilot on their 35th mission. Think about that. Most people are not committed at all. She was very committed. She wanted to live for her family. She wanted to live for her husband, her grandchildren. She wanted to live. She didn't just want to treat the chemo or treat the cancer with chemo and everything. She wanted to actually build her body up and get it strong. So I explained to her that's what you have to focus on, building your health, not just trying to treat the cancer. And she started down this path of what I'm going to go through here in a minute. And really it's 3 components. There's only 3 things you got to do. So I said, Miss Kay, you got to do A, B, and C, period. And she did them. And she stuck to it. She was thoroughly committed. She made changes in her lifestyle. She made changes in her schedule. So she had to take time out of her schedule to come and see us every day. And I'm going to tell you about that in a second. She had to change what she was eating. And then she had to focus on getting her body into what we call a cancer-killing state, where her body was killing off the cancer naturally. She did all that. Now here we are 5.5 years later. And Miss Kay has no trace of cancer in her. She lost 70 something pounds. She lost the walker. And if you've ever seen her in here on Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, I would encourage you to say hi to her. She is nothing but a blessing. She's pure joy. She's living on time that she didn't think she had. So she is thoroughly pleased just with life in general. It's a really neat perspective she has. And she doesn't, she's not looking at her body as broken or having to deal with cancer. Now she did, just to be transparent with you, she did come to me about a year and a half ago, and she goes, one of these tumors that she had hardened, it calcified, so it became like a rock. And then it was in one of her breasts, so she came to me, she said, Dr. Hooten, I'd like to get that thing taken out. I said, Miss Kay, you go for it, you're going to be just fine. But that was the only medical intervention she had. She never did any chemo, never did any radiation, no pill that you had to take for 5 years or whatever. And she's had 2 clear scans with no trace of cancer anywhere. Now, what did she do? Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is understand that cancer happens because of your environment. Okay, let me say that again. Cancer happens because of your environment. There are genes in healthy cells that get shut off, or they get disturbed, or they adapt because of the environment that you are creating. Okay, so we all have the genetic predisposition to cancer if we treat our bodies improperly. And if you've gone through this, listen, I'm not judging you. Please don't feel guilty. I get it. My family was sick growing up. I was a sick child. I never had cancer. But you've got to accept the fact that this happens inside of a body, whether you're 1-year-old or 71 years old. It happens inside of a body that is already sick. The cells themselves are sick. So in the case of a child, for example, maybe the mom had been exposed to something that passed into the baby. Unknowingly, okay, completely innocent. If you don't know, how could you ever stop it from happening? I get it. Please don't feel guilty. No, nobody's perfect. But we have to accept this. Now, this whole genetic mutation thing I'm talking about, it's all over the last 5 to 10 years of cancer research. It's a field called epigenetics. It was published in the journal Nature as a medical study. It's been cited all over PubMed over 600 times. The fact that cancer only happens because of the environment that you create. So what does that mean exactly? Well, a healthy cell has a certain environment. A cancerous cell has a bad environment. We'll make it easy. There's good and there's bad. In a good, healthy cell, there are certain characteristics of that cell. And if you don't maintain the health of those cells, the cells start to mutate and they become a mutated cell, or what we call cancer. So there's some fundamental differences. So I'm going to go through the differences of what the difference between a healthy cell and a cancer cell. So in a healthy cell, and this is a short list, in a healthy cell, the primary source of energy is going to be oxygen. So you must have a huge input of oxygen all the time. Just like we need to breathe air, your cells are trying to respire, they need oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. So you got to have oxygen. A cancerous cell does not need oxygen. It has mutated to the point where it doesn't need oxygen. And this was discovered back in the 1920s. In fact, a guy was given a Nobel Prize in medicine in 1931, Dr. Otto Warburg, for showing that a cancerous cell no longer needs oxygen. It has mutated from being a healthy cell or healthy group of cells into a disturbed or mutated group of cells that no longer need oxygen. Okay, so that's point number 1. You got to have oxygen. So very important, breathe. We're going to talk about how to get extra oxygen here in a little bit. The second thing is that your healthy cells need a lot of goods like fatty acids and minerals. So fatty acids like fish oil. We don't eat enough fish in this country. Walnuts are a really great source of fat. Almonds, great source of fat. Avocados, great source of fat. You need a lot of healthy fats. A healthy cell needs healthy fats. Now, in a cancerous cell, the lining of the cells, the fat that makes up that lining is not healthy, and it doesn't allow oxygen to get in and out. So the cells have literally been choked of oxygen. Minerals on the inside, you need a healthy supply of minerals, things like magnesium, selenium, and there's 77 different minerals that are involved in this, but you need a healthy source of minerals. In a cancerous cell, they can be depleted in minerals. They don't need a whole lot to live on. In fact, they just need sugar and some water, to live. So that's about it. Now, another characteristic of the cancer cell, and this is a big point, is a healthy cell, as it matures, it will produce a baby healthy cell, and then the host will die off. The mama cell will die off. Okay, it's called mitosis. That's basic cellular physiology. In a cancerous cell, when that cell reproduces, the host cell does no longer die. It doesn't die off anymore. Did you get that? So as you've created this environment that is lacking in oxygen, lacking in proper nutrients, that's full of sugar, that's full of bad fats, the healthy cells now become cancerous. And once they become cancerous, that cancer cell, when it makes a baby cell, the host does not die off. So these cells over here, these cancer cells, they start multiplying by factors of 2. So you go from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, 64, and it's multiplying rapidly. And once you get to several 100,000 cells, now it's like a mass, a tumor, and you can start to detect this. In fact, I think you need millions and millions of cells to even be able to be seen on a test of some kind. So then, of course, they just treat the cancer. They don't do anything about the environment. So what Dr. Warburg showed was that if you manage to damage a healthy cell enough to where it's not getting enough oxygen, as those cells reproduce, they become non-dependent on oxygen. So that is a huge, huge thing. So you got to understand, what is it that chokes a healthy cell from oxygen, and that will determine whether or not you're going to get cancer or not. So it has all to do with your environment. Again, medical journals cited all over PubMed, more than 600 times. First done medical studies in a journal called Nature, Epigenetics. If you want to look it up, just look up epigenetics, cancer research, that kind of thing, and you'll see it is blowing up the internet. Now, the reason you go to an oncologist and they're not going to tell you about all this because they're selling chemo and radiation. Right or wrong, that's just what they do. Everybody, if you got a hammer in your hand, everybody looks like the nail. So that's what they're doing. They're not concerning themselves with the environment. Now you'll get the random doctor that is, and but they'll still come in and say you got to treat it with cancer, treat it with chemo, treat it with radiation, and then eat better. But like I was telling you, this that lady that died, her doctors, her oncologist, even literally told her it doesn't matter what you eat. So when I was telling her, hey, these are some things you can do, she goes, well, my oncologist told me that it doesn't matter what I eat. Think about that. Just let that sink in. Of course it matters what you eat. Now that's not the only thing. In fact, the first thing, so that's understanding what cancer is. That's the first thing. Okay, so what is cancer? Now, a big part of what a healthy cell needs is it has to have proper communication to your brain. If you were to separate your brain from your cells or from your tissues or from your organs, obviously they die. So you want to think of your brain as the power supply for all the cells in your body. Without that, the cells die off. In a cancerous cell, those cancers no longer need nerve input. They don't need the power supply from your brain. They literally can take those cancer cells out, put them in a petri dish, supply it with a bunch of sugar water, and those cancer cells survive without nerve supply. So that is the number one thing, is you have to have nerve supply. Followed closely is the supply of oxygen. So if you remove both of those two things, your cells die. Or in the case of oxygen, they'll mutate and become a cancerous cell. Now it doesn't need nerve supply or oxygen, and that's trouble. So you got to get your nerve supply. That, of course, is where we come in. All I'm doing for you, all I'm doing for anybody that comes in here, and all of our 350 colleagues around the world, is we are maximizing your nerve supply. That is the number one most important thing we can do for you. So when you are here in the office and you're doing all your exercises, especially things like these wobble exercises, that's putting motion into your spine, and that will stimulate and allow your brain and your body to more coordinate, to heal better, because you're getting more power to your body. Then you come in and you get adjusted. So if there's a problem in your spine, which a lot of you are familiar with that curve, if your curve is gone in your neck and you get that adjusted, that will release this pressure that's on your system, so your brain can now get to your body. So keep your spine in motion. When you sit still for 8 hours a day at work or 4 hours a day at work, your spine's going to rot that way. So while you're here, take advantage. Get a real good wobble session in that will loosen up your spine. It'll stimulate your spinal fluid to flow up and down better. You come in, get adjusted, and then from there, immediately come out here and start doing your rehab exercises. So some of these stretch things that you're doing, what that will do is it'll stretch and strengthen your spine, and that strengthening of your spine will keep the flow going. It's all about flow, if you can think of it that way. Because you go to other chiropractors and you hear this language like, oh, that vertebrae's out, oh, my back is out. No. It's all about keeping your brain and your body communicating, unrestricted. Our terminology for that is subluxation and adjustment. If you're subluxated, your spine literally is clamped down, blocking your brain from your body, and the adjustment releases that pressure so your brain and your body can do its thing. There's this innate wisdom in your body. It knows if you have cancer cells. So your brain knows if you have a group of cells that are starting to mutate, and it will try to eliminate those. It will communicate to your immune system to go and attack these mutated cells to get rid of them. But if your brain can't get to your body, how is it even going to know if you're dealing with cancer? So very important. So take advantage of your spine, and obviously, how long do you want your brain to communicate with your body? A week? How about the rest of your life? And I will tell you that if you have structural damage, especially if you were a child, anything like my childhood, I was damaged at birth. If you were a child and you had any structural damage, by the time you're 17 and 18 years old, you're going to have to actively take care of your spine for the rest of your life if you want your brain and your body to work. And the results speak for themselves. Miss K is here 5.5 years later. When she came in with all that cancer, all that stage 4 invasive metastasized cancer everywhere in her body, she got adjusted every day of the week. She came Monday through Friday, and sometimes on Saturdays, and sometimes she would get a couple of adjustments each day. And what that does is that just allows your brain and your body to communicate. So you keep building health, you keep building health, you keep getting stronger, you keep getting stronger, you keep getting stronger. And she was committed. She was not that kamikaze pilot on the 35th mission. She was a kamikaze pilot on one mission. She was going to get it done, and the results are here. And she's not the only one. If you were at the cancer workshop a couple weeks ago, we had Adriana, fully committed. Now, she took a break, and she started getting sick again, and then she got recommitted. Now she's not letting it go anymore. So you just got to be committed and believe your body can do it. So if you need to go back and watch this first part, healthy cells, cancer cells, has everything to do with your environment, starting with your nerve supply and your oxygen. Okay, so this is part 2. I'm going into part 2 now on how to not die from cancer, how not to get diagnosed, and if you've been through it, how do you make sure it doesn't come back. Part 1 is know what cancer is, so now you know what that is. And I've got other videos if you want to go back and watch little segments about chemotherapy and how a cancer cell develops. This is part 2, is how to stop making them. Okay, so I've told you a couple of points. Obviously, if you get your body and your spine and your brain flowing, you get everything working, that's one big thing. That's more, your body's more powerful, it's more efficient. The second thing is flood your body with the proper nutrients. Okay, one thing about a cancer cell is it only survives on sugar. I mentioned that in the first part. That's a big difference between a healthy cell and a cancer cell. So one easy thing to do is stop eating carbohydrates. Now, I get it. There's good carbohydrates. There's bad carbohydrates. Things like berries and fruit, obviously very good carbohydrates. That's from God. That's from the earth. But in the case of cancer cells, if you've got cancer cells, you're even going to have to starve your body from those good, healthy carbohydrates at the very beginning, at least for a time, to starve these cells out. Once you starve the cancer cells from their primary food source, which is sugar. See, they don't need oxygen, they don't need minerals, they don't need healthy fats, they don't need all the other stuff. They don't need asparagus, they don't need broccoli, they don't need cucumbers. They need simple sugars. So once you starve your body of simple sugars, now you've stopped this progression of all these cells. They'll start dying off. Cakes, crackers, soda, all fast food, all of it. And I love the company, but even Chick-fil-A is not healthy. The products that they use to make, they fry the chicken, even the chicken itself isn't healthy. The French fries, all those things, those are simple carbohydrates, the French fries are. Potatoes. Now, I recommend everybody staying away from all white potatoes just because of the genetic engineering. Sweet potatoes, if you can get an organic one, They're a superfood, but even right now, if you're trying to kill cancer cells, you got to even starve it from the sweet potato. So what are you left with? You're left with a bunch of green veggies and clean meat. Let me say that again. We've got lists up at the front. Christine can get you a list of the good veggies that you can eat, and there's a bunch of them. And then clean meats, things like clean fish, like salmon right out of Alaska. And don't give me any excuses, because you can find that at Costco now on the cheap. I've seen it at Trader Joe's on the cheap. You get a big old filet for like $5. It's awesome. And then obviously Whole Foods is, thankfully the prices are coming down, but you've got all kinds of choices there. Clean up your food. Clean up the meats, make sure they're organic, wild caught, all those things, and eliminate breads, eliminate pastas and chips and rice. All those comfort foods that we were taught are okay when we were younger, that, energy foods or whatever, that's a bunch of garbage. That's why everybody's dying from cancer, because they don't know what feeds cancer cells. So if you heard Adriana's story a couple weeks ago, that was one thing she really had to get after, was cut after the carbs. Miss Kay did also. She went on the cancer killing diet, and not only did the cancer die off, she lost 75 pounds. There's another added benefit. So now, it doesn't have to be that way forever. Once you get your body into a cancer killing state, now you can add some healthy carbs back in, things like berries. Bananas are really good things. Bananas are a berry. Lots of avocados while you're getting in a cancer killing state. That's one of the best foods for you. Nuts, seeds, lots of green veggies, and healthy meat. Again, we've got these lists at the office, but to stop making cancer cells, a couple of very important things. Stop eating the junk. You've got to be committed. I know this is the hardest thing. Things like milk and cereal. I get it, man. And coffee. All those things are junk that are just feeding cancer cells. So you got to stop eating and drinking the junk. Add in extra oxygen. And healthy fats. Avocados, our perfect ratio omega is set up and designed to really fuel the outer lining of your cells. So once you keep your healthy cells healthy, now oxygen can get in and out. So basically, get your spine working, stop eating crap, eat a bunch of good stuff, add in some extra oxygen. So exercise. Now, those are stop making cancer cell tips. Now, let's focus on how to kill it. So this is part 3. So part 1, understand what cancer is. Part 2, stop making it. Part 3, let's see what we can do to kill these cancer cells. Now, in a cancerous cell, I told you earlier at part 1 where the cancer doesn't die off. Okay, so that's actually a gene in the cell that's been shut off. In a healthy cell where they die off after they make babies, the cancerous cell, when they make babies, they don't die off. And that has to do with a gene that's been mutated. Vitamin D3, in its cleanest, most organic form, will penetrate these cancer cells and flip that gene back on, causing the cancer cell to die off. It's one of the only things that I've seen or that I've read or studied about that has this direct effect on cancer cells, causing them to die. Vitamin D3. So much research done on this that what the geneticists are saying, the epigeneticists are saying, that this vitamin D3 is responsible for some 30,000 different genetic codes in all of our cells. It's a huge player, not just for cancer, but for everything. Your immune system, inflammation, digestion, all your hormone levels. I mean, it's massive. You got to have vitamin D3. Everybody we've tested, except for one 14-year-old girl in 17 years, has been low on vitamin D3. So unless you're outside in the sun all the time, which I am, I would recommend getting 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 every day, and it has to have probiotics with it so that you can absorb it properly. And you should eat it with food. It's a fat-soluble vitamin, so like eat it with a meal, like with clean meat, or if you don't eat meat, like an avocado, you need fat to properly absorb the vitamin D3. There's some other nutrients in there, but that you need to support vitamin D3 absorption, like vitamin K. So whenever we take it around a meal, eat it with some veggies, things like kale and spinach. Those have vitamin K in it. But the supplement itself should have some probiotics in it to really activate your system when you get down there, so you really suck this vitamin D3 in. And if you keep your levels up high in your blood, what will happen is your brain will take that vitamin D and will always send it to these cancer cells to kill them, to kill them, to kill them. So that's one real easy thing to do. And we were so disenfranchised with the vitamin D3 products that are on the market, we went to the lab and had some made, very inexpensive. I think it's in like $26, $27 for the really good stuff. So don't go cheap on the vitamin D3. There's also, they make a prescription of this stuff, which is atrocious. If you've ever been prescribed vitamin D through a medical physician, and you go to get it at the pharmacy, that is not the same thing. That's not an organic product. It's actually D2. It's sort of bastardized. They don't even use the real form of it. And one of the side effects is liver damage. Well, if you get a healthy D3 like what we've got in the office, that's not going to do anything other than kill these cancer cells off and help your body. So that's one real easy thing to do to fight off cancer. I will caution you though, none of it's going to work if your brain and your body aren't communicating. So getting more adjustments. When Miss K started care, she was getting 2 adjustments sometimes, but every day. She came in every single day. Sometimes she would get 2 adjustments. After the cancer was gone, then she backed off. Now she gets 2 adjustments a week. She's in here Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork, committed. And she keeps her brain and her body working. She takes the vitamin D. She does the cancer killing diet, again, which we have copies for you up there. And lastly, one real easy thing you can do involves oxygen. Now, this isn't an excuse for anybody else. Ms. K, she's in her 70s on a walker. It was hard for her to work out. And she was honest with me. She goes, this is going to be hard for me to do, because she was morbidly obese on a walker. And I said, okay, we're going to have to supplement oxygen. And yes, there is a way to do this. This is not a replacement for exercising. My workout this morning was 1 hour on and off cardio, high intensity interval training. I was sucking in air so much after. I was on the ground, just barely breathing. It was terrible. But I know that my body was in a cancer killing state after, because I'm sucking down this oxygen. There's no replacement for that. You need to move. You've got to get exercise. There's no plan B there. You got to be committed to this. In the case of Miss K, now she moves a whole lot better. She's getting some exercise, but at the very beginning she couldn't. So what we did was we supplemented oxygen. And if you go online and look, if you plug in like oxygen drops, they've been doing this for a long time. And what these chemists will do is they'll take oxygen out of the air and they'll condense it and they'll liquefy it. And then in the lab, they combine it with minerals. And there's a formula for this, NaClO2, it's sodium chloride. And it's this it's an oxygen bomb, where you've got this massive amount of oxygen attached to nutrients, drip that in some water, it's tasteless, drink it, and then what happens is, what these minerals do is it'll carry this oxygen into your system, and once it gets into your blood, that breaks apart and it drops this huge amount of oxygen directly into your bloodstream. Not just for cancer, but think about what all that is going to do for your body. You talk about a powerful antioxidant. What is more powerful to your body as nutrients go? What's more powerful than oxygen? So you're dropping an oxygen bomb, like a fumigator, if you will, like a roach fumigator for killing roaches. This is like an oxygen fumigator to kill off cancer cells. You flood your body with enough oxygen, these healthy cells won't be converting to oxygen in the first place. And then now what the epigeneticists are saying, and you can find this in those articles, is that if you could manage to get oxygen into these cancer cells, they'll start reverting back into a healthy cell. So what are those again? Let's get your spine going. More adjustments, more motion. Just make time for it. Be committed to it. I promise you it'll work. You'll see the difference, just like Miss K and everybody else that sticks with it. Add in vitamin D3. And this is something, because we're inside so much, every American should be taking vitamin D3 with probiotics. It needs to be in organic form. Know where you're getting this stuff. I know the good stuff. Out there in the vitamin shops, very few things are good. If you've got a vitamin D3 product, you want us to check it out, we can. It's got to have probiotics with it. Take it with food. And thirdly, get more exercise, and you can supplement these oxygen drops. And we've actually got a scientist under care in our office, and he was testing these oxygen drops for potency that you can buy online and everything. Nothing touches what he's making. You can get a big old jug of this stuff and take some every day. You can take 10 to 20 drops in the morning, 10 to 20 drops at night, and watch what happens. One of the cool things that I'm seeing happen on not just cancer, some of these people that have high blood pressure issues and they've been taking medication for a long time, they'll do these oxygen drops consistently. And what happens is, because the arteries are now getting so full of oxygen, that a lot of the inflammation starts to go down. The blood pressure, you just see it start to creep down. Now this takes time. It's not going to be an overnight fix. Remember, we're saturating your body with the good stuff. So there is no quick fix. Remember guys, you can get strong. I don't care what the situation is, you can get strong. If you have to go through chemo and radiation and surgery, you've still got to get strong, and you can get strong, just don't wait too long. God is great, and He will tell you, don't wait too late. Don't wait too late. He's given you a body that is amazing. I've described how cancer develops, how to not make it anymore, how to focus on killing it. You've got people, individuals, families after families after families doing this naturally. You're not going to see it on TV. You're not going to see it on a drug commercial. You're not going to see it with some of these cancer institutes out there, or the big one down in Houston. You're not going to see that because there's no money in getting you healthy. The industry is set up to convince and brainwash everybody that the only thing you can do is chemo radiation. That is not the truth. If you've been through that, you still need to get your body healthy and strong, and you can. Just don't wait too long. This is Dr. Hooten signing off. I hope this helps somebody. Obviously, watch it over and over again. Share it. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook through Hooten Family Healing Center. Wish you all the best. God bless you, and we will talk to you next time.